Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you for those of you who tried to catch the live video. The space where I'm at, the signal is apparently not going to behave today, and that's okay. We're at the end of Mercury retrograde in Taurus, almost out of the post shadow, and I hear it's going to be a yeehaw time as we continue to go direct Mercury in Taurus. In any case, there might be a couple of interruptions. I'm going to try to keep this short. I'm actually in line for the food bank, and it's great because even though yes, I'm still going to the food bank at the moment, I can see clearly now the rain is gone, right? It's not going to be too long before I no longer need these services, right? But while I'm here, I was thinking about something that I mentioned in my last video that Spirit has been kind of just like, keep playing with this, keep talking about this. To be learned that there's something to be taught, some things to be learned and stuff like that. And so it's about this whole idea of the laws of love, which has had me thinking all week about what would I know as the laws of love? And I'm not necessarily talking about like legal laws, right? Like what are like universal laws that we know of as love that humans have kind of figured out, because there is a lot of nuance to it. So there's a lot of times to where there are certain rules, but then there are exceptions to the rules, and and things of that nature. It's a very nuanced thing, right? But it feels important to talk about it. And all I can say is that the more I realize that I know, the more I realize that I know very little. And I think that's kind of part of the point of it. In any case, the one that I want to talk about today, we're going to make it lesson one, is you get what you give. And it really, as a law of love, it especially applies, right? Like if you do not give a lot of empathy, a lot of kindness, a lot of compassion, most people don't give it back to you. I've spent the last like 18 months seeing more of the underside of society and being unhoused. Before that, I saw, a varying degree of like the lower classes, the middle classes, and the upper classes. And now I'm getting back into that, especially as I go more towards city politics to try to help those who are still caught in the gaps. Like I had to really fight to get to get us into our housing and to get us through services and to really just like push the support networks to the max. You know what I mean? And I know that that's not something that everybody is well equipped to navigate. However, one thing that I've definitely noticed is there is a lot of this, like, you get what you give. If you're not reaching out to people in an act of self-love and love for that, those support services are there, and love for your children if you have them and things like that, well, no one's going to reach back to you, really. Or even at that matter, I can't even say that. There are times that I know that I have reached towards those who say that they need help, who I know that they need help, but then they don't accept the opportunities. It's like, if I'm not just saying, here here is everything that you need, and instead I'm saying, I cannot give you what you need right now, but I can tell you how to get it. If you call this charity or go to that community dinner or do this thing over there or do this thing over there, you can get what you need. It'll take a little bit of time, but you can get it. You can get it honorably. You can do it humbly and in a good way. There's no lying, cheating, or stealing needed, right? And a lot of people are like, well, but that's too hard, or that's too complicated, or I don't want to be seen, or I don't want people to know that I'm unhoused, or I'm going to have to answer all these questions about things and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I mean, I understand. However, it is that you get what you give. Like, if you're going to hide, you're going to be hidden. There's going to be people who don't want to see you, right? And lots of people who don't see you. Whereas if you're willing to stand where you are and be like, this is where I am not ashamed. This is how I got here. This is where I'm trying to go. And I'm willing to do the work to get there, right? So, as a law of love, it works in a similar way. Like, whether we're talking about romantic love or love between your pantheon of deities or monotheistic deity, love of, romantic love, familial love, friendship love, self love, like whatever it is, you get what you give. And self love in particular, if you sit there telling yourself that you can't, Well, I mean, obviously, you're going to be giving yourself the thing that you're telling yourself, right? The more you tell yourself you can't, the more you feel like you can't, and the more you don't. The more you tell yourself you can, and that you will, and that you will find a way, the more that you do, right? And I know, and I sincerely believe that that's part of what makes one of the hugest differences between me and my family and a lot of other families is that even though we've been through a great deal of trauma and gone through a great deal of very hard situations to navigate, I've always been in a place since we started being unhoused of knowing that I could do it, knowing I trust my intuition, trust my mind, trust my heart, and not just doing it myself. I have a counselor. I have other people that support me. I have advocates. I have stuff like I don't just rely on myself, though I do trust myself. And part of the reason I trust myself is because I check myself in these ways, right? But I remember a time that someone, a kind of an acquaintance, had said something to me like, there's a lot of people that get stuck in these cycles and they die in them. And I said, that won't be us. And he said, well, don't be so sure. A lot of people say that. And I said, it won't be us. I will not let that happen. I'm incredibly resourceful. You have watched me do this. You've watched my social media. I've interacted with you almost every week. You've helped me in some spaces. Like, think about it. Why would you help me? Right? And he kind of, yeah, all right, yeah, I see, I hear you. And I get it. He's just worried, right? And he knows other people that are in the system that aren't going that direction. And most of the people that I've talked to that, like, I mean, we went through cycles of, getting up a step and then falling down two steps and then getting up a step and falling down two steps and then getting up three steps and then falling down two steps. It was its own little dance. You got to learn it, right? um so, like, I know it's coming from that place, but I also know plenty of people that get into that headspace, like their self-love is in such a crap place that what they give to themselves is what they get back, right? Like, if they don't feel like they are capable or resourceful or deserving of assistance or able to make it through the harder times or things of that nature, then that's the love that they give themselves, and that's the love that they receive from themselves, and then that reflects in that, because they don't trust themselves, they have a harder time getting other people to trust them. Because they feel like it's very overwhelming, they get overwhelmed and then often turn to other challenges that create more problems, right? Or because the way forward may seem like the moon card and be like, well, it's like an undeveloped path factor, you just have to have faith and keep going with it. They don't, like, the space of a year can go by very, very quickly, but when we're sitting there at the first step of a 1,000-step journey, it looks like a long ways away, but it's really not, especially once you get started. And you got to start that journey in a place of knowing. And so this applies in whatever way that love is present in your life as a kind of a law of love, maybe more of a lesson of love. You get what you give. And it works the same way in the sense of, like, if what you are giving is out of balance, if it's too much, if you're too much of a giver, you're actually not going to get people around, you're not going to manifest people around you that are also going to give to you equally, because you are not giving equally. There's give and take, right? And then likewise, if you are in a space of trying to hold and keep and prevent, so that you don't feel alone, or so you feel like you have the coupled status or the married status or things like that, you're going to get a relationship that is only about those fears and only about that status, or the convenience or the money or whatever thing. Whereas if you go into relationships in a space of, like, I can support myself emotionally, I can support myself financially, I can support myself socially, and I am here and present for these relationships because I want to enjoy the intimacy. I want to enjoy the time, and I would say the quality time, the physical touch, the things of that nature. They aren't things that I need. They aren't things that complete me. I just want to enjoy them. I want to give to a said relationship, and I want to receive from said relationships. And likewise, you know, in a different sense with familial love, like whether it, to your children, to your parents, to your siblings, or whatever. Like if you're just coming into that space of need, like I need them to respect me, I need them to give to me, I need to feel needed by them, things like that. Well, that's what those relationships are going to be like, right? Whereas if you go into them from a space of want rather than need, like I want these relationships, I love my kids, or I want to have social relationships with, community that can be the family that I'm not there for, because family for me is about that want, not the need, not the obligation, things like that. But what you give is what you get, right? We might go into this another time, but for right now, I think this works. Please feel free to comment below with any additions, anything that you want to add to this conversation.